Okay, we are now live. So I'm going to reach down. I got a little button here where we can see on people online, they can see the whole screen and me, like it's the room view. Sometimes I'll view this because they're little things. And if you're looking at it on your phone, you want to be able to see the whole thing. So that would be an up close. And then sometimes they'll see me up in the corner up here in the screen. But you guys get to see me in this big screen the whole time. So it's great. Okay, tonight we're going to talk about the gut-brain connection. Both of them are super important, the gut and the brain, but they're also connected in ways that are fascinating and we're growing more and more aware of all the time. So I'm going to give you some answers for both of those and how they tie in together and some of the latest research, what we know. But before I do that, so Alondra's going to be monitoring things online. There's a few people who are watching online. Around the world, probably 200,000 to 300,000. No, my mom's probably on there, and but some people will be watching this later as well. But for those of you in the room, I always like to have a little introductions, so you can share your name, what your interest is in this topic, what you hope to learn, and maybe I can tailor some of the information to your interests or your needs, and then. If you had any experience with me, just a little, 15, 20 seconds, and then I'll share some of that, repeat, or actually probably what we'll do is do this mic so that they can hear you really well. Okay. Andy, you get to start.
What am I saying?
Your name.
Oh, hi.
What
My
your
name
interest?
is Anna.
What your interest is in this topic, and why you're here. Right? Who you are, Ken. Right? Okay. You're special.
All right, here we go. I am Anna. I have been here for 18 years. So I pretty much work with Dr. Hobbs' brain on a daily basis. But I still don't know as much as he does. So I'm here to learn more.
I'm Kathy. And, there I am. I have been a patient of Jay's for Dr. Hobbs for quite a while. And so I'm here to learn more. I was even adjusted today, so see, I do come in. And I'm interested because I need all the information about cleaning up the gut and making the brain work a lot better. Right. That's what I'm hoping for.
And you are an inspiration in serving others and learning always, so you're
Thank
cool.
You.
I'm Alicia, and I'm a patient, and I'm interested in autoimmune disorders, rheumatoid arthritis.
Yep, the gut is the beginning of the immune system.
And I'm Linda, and I'm interested, or I'm a patient of Dr. Hobbs, and I've been with him for a month. And at 35, I've experienced a lot of severe medical issues that medicine doctors have not helped me with. And I'm on this journey, and I'm very positive, and so far I've been feeling a lot better.
Excellent. Thanks. Okay, now you get a little close-up on my face here. All right, if any of you online want to share anything that Alondra can pass that along. There'll be times that I'll stop during the presentation and just ask her if there's something that we want to address that somebody's asked online. For the most part, I'm going to be just loading up lots of information, so there won't be much opportunity for questions. But if you have something that's just burning, then you can ask, because there's probably other people who want to know the same thing. All right, let me make sure we're still all good here. Okay, so autoimmune disorders, irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, fatigue, hormones, chronic illness, really they all tie into this gut-brain connection and so many more things. All right, and go. Technology, I'll get it figured out. So you guys share who you are, who am I? So I have family chiropractor since 1996. So almost 30 years. And chiropractic really is the foundation. Sometimes people come to me and they're like, "Oh, I didn't even know you're a chiropractor." It's because there's so many different things I do. They didn't know. But more people go, oh, you're a chiropractor. You kind of know what that is. But then patients will tell other ones like, no, you don't know who Dr. Hobbs is. So focus has always been on the nervous system and chronic disorders, chronic health, long-term good health. I'm board certified in chiropractic neurology since 2007. That is essentially where we look at the nervous system almost like a muscle. It's like, how can we help this body organ work better? And like a muscle, it needs to be exercised, it needs to be properly nourished. But of course, it's much more complicated than a muscle. But in a simple respect, that's how we look at it. And it can recover. Whereas before we thought, once you got a problem, then you're kind of stuck with it. But that's not true in many cases. Certified in functional medicine, that's where we look at the body and not just go, okay, what disease do you have, but what dysfunction do you have? Can you nourish yourself in a different way to restore function? So nutritionally with diet and supplementation, things like that. And then lecturer and member of the Interdisciplinary Association of Functional Neurology and Rehabilitation. If you say it 3 times fast, you get to join. So it's a bunch of different doctors from different types of professions getting together and going, okay, how can we use this neurology information to help people recover from strokes, concussions, neurodevelopmental, ADHD, dyslexia, autism, but also recover from dementia, recover from neuropathy, all sorts of things. So the reason we get such amazing results in our office is we just have a different approach. And that's characterized by this term salutogenesis. It's Latin, comes from the word saluto, which is health, and genesis, which is creation of. And if I want to help you get healthy, I have to focus on factors that create health in your body, as opposed to focusing on disease. Because no amount of focusing on disease is ever going to teach you how to get healthy. There's a place for both. It's just we've got them totally out of balance in the Western medical system. 90% or 95% of the profession is focused on, or the system is focused on disease. What disease do you have? And the 3% is focused on how to get you well. So how to keep you alive, which is important, but then how to keep you living while you're alive, thriving, right? So that's what we really focus on. And of course, that's going to help you live along as well. So stories are an important part. So I'm going to tell you a lot of science, but I want to tell you some stories, and that's really why we're here, is can we make changes in people's lives? So I'm going to erase this screen a little bit so people can see better. All right, 4-week-old baby. It's been 4 weeks and he's had only 2 natural bowel movements. 4-week-old baby, only 2 bowel movements naturally in that period of time. You remember that, Anna, that child? And this is pretty cool. So they had a sleep monitor, some technology where they could see how much activity the baby was having during the night. And red lines it was very active. And you don't want a baby very active when they're supposed to be sleeping like a baby, right? And so it was like, yeah, it was all red. And then sleep monitor was showing all red lines, meaning he was not sleeping. After spinal adjustments, the very next night, they came in the next day, they said he was sleeping, all blue. He was so at this point, wasn't having bowel movements. But the first night was like all blue. It was like he was sleeping really well. It's like, that is great. But of course, we wanted a bowel movement. But it was great. Sleep was a good first step. Well, the next day, do you remember the bowel movement, Anna? You want to describe it?
It was a blowout.
Hey, you can talk into this mic.
It was a blowout.
It was a blowout, yeah. So they had a diaper and then they were swaddled. And yeah, to be graphic, the poop went all the way up the back and came out behind his neck. Right? It was a blowout. But it was a celebration. This was a natural bowel movement. It was really good. It was like, okay, that was one. But then it's every 2 days after that. So that was great. Can you imagine if that baby continued to not have bowel movements? Yeah, I mean, it might have died. Yeah. So, and if it did live, there was going to be troubles with the digestion, immune system, all the stuff that was on that first page, immune disorders and developmental disorders. So that was exciting. It was really simple. If you saw the adjustment, it would look like I'm not even doing anything. I'm just holding the baby and my fingers move like 1/4 of an inch, but just the right spots. And that was the adjustment. So, So was this baby, did the baby have a spine problem, a brain problem, or a nervous system problem? Trick question.
I think he had a spine problem.
He
also had a nervous system.
Yes, and yes. And since the brain is the master system of the nervous system, yes, yes, and yes. It was all three. Because I didn't go in and do a craniotomy, you know. I did an adjustment on the spine, but it improves the nervous system function, which then controls the gut function. This is where a lot of this information comes from, books and journal articles. So none of this is my opinion. This is based on research. And if it is my opinion, then I'll share it with you. So, but of course, I agree with it. But yeah, some great books here. The Grain Brain, Dr. Perlmutter. Dr. Perlmutter has been one of the groundbreakers in understanding the nervous system function and how to help it nutritionally. Autoimmune epidemic, talking about how there are so many conditions these days are autoimmune. The gut and psychology syndrome, or GAPS diet. Dr. Campbell, this is an old book and really, really good. Yeah, the diet in there is pretty intense, but it helped us understand some things about how the gut function affects nervous system function and developmental disorders, everything from autism to schizophrenia. More and more and more, right? So a lot of great stuff. And you don't have to write down anything or try to remember everything. If you want, you can ask us, send us an email or text, or tell Anna, and we'll send you a series of emails that will have key slides and some key information from this presentation. So what is my story? So this is me when I was about 9 years old. These are my brothers who used to beat up on me all the time. And this is how I spent a lot of my time, sick. This is me on Christmas. I got some presents. It was pretty cool. Yeah, I got in here, I remember one of my favorite ones was this Reese's Pieces piggy bank. It was super cool. Very simple, but I really treasured it. Yeah, and you know, make sure you get some 7-Up because that's really good for you. Hospital food. Nothing will get you better than that. So I spent, I remember 2 Christmases I spent sick in bed. One of them in the hospital, and one of them just laying in bed. I can remember those spots and those times, right? It was really, Christmas is a pretty special time. And I still thought, I think at this point I knew there wasn't Santa Claus, but it wasn't far in my past. But you want to, you're out of school, you should be celebrating, right? So if I spent 2 Christmases in bed, then you can imagine that I was sick quite a bit. And that affected me later as I tried to study. It wasn't necessarily sick, but I was definitely dysfunctional. I could not finish a chapter of a book without falling asleep. And I went through school. I went through elementary school. I started staying up till midnight in elementary school to finish my schoolwork. I was very dedicated to get my work done well. And sometimes that was excessive. My parents went to the counselor. I was like, is it okay? My son is staying up till midnight doing his homework. They're like, well, I guess that's a good thing. But part of it was I couldn't finish stuff, and so it just took me forever. So I finally finished a chapter. I remember the moment again that I finished a chapter of a book. I was a freshman in college, and it was a chemistry book. And I did not necessarily like chemistry. It wasn't that it was so interesting. But I remember turning that page and going, I finished a chapter. I could read it again. I'm not going to, but I could read more. And that was pretty cool. And so at that point, actually, I learned that if I exercised at the same time, then I could stay awake. So and this is my son and I up at some lake in the mountains here. And this is my daughter and I and our dog kissing me and my wife. So, yep. So what's going on? We're going to talk about some of the research that's statistics, right? So we'll lay that groundwork. Then we'll talk about why this is happening and what's next, solution. That's where we want to get to, right? So what's the impact of autoimmune disorder? 50 million Americans have autoimmune disorder, 100 autoimmune diseases. There's a lot of autoimmune diseases. We find that if we just can't figure something out, it's like, where does this come from? I don't know. There's not this one thing that's causing it. It's probably autoimmune, and it's probably related to inflammation. So autoimmune You guys know do you know what autoimmune is? Go ahead, tell me. Attacking your own body. Yep. So it's when your body is autoimmune. So you're attacking yourself. Over 300% increase in multiple autoimmune conditions over the past several decades. So people having more than one autoimmune condition. So if they've got one, there's a good chance they have a second one. 75% more prevalent in women than men. Another way to make this unfair for women, right? So first it was high heels and then whatever, right? So $100 billion per year and economic burden. So why is this happening? Well, researchers believe this increase of autoimmune incidence around the world is due to a combination of genetic predisposition and environmental factors. So they don't know. So do you remember when the Human Genome Project, they're like, as soon as we map the human genome, we're going to have it all figured out. This is going to be the entryway to solving all kinds of disease processes. And then it happened. We mapped the human genome, and then it was just kind of quiet. It's like, well, where's all the big breakthroughs? It's like, well, what they realized is it was a lot more complicated than we thought. And so we figured out, let's think of this like a chart with 10 rows and 10 columns, 100 boxes, and they mapped it all out, the human genome. It was, of course, much more complicated than that, but they figured that out. And then once they get it all done, they're like, you know what? And we're like 80% the same as a worm. Like, maybe there's something else to this. And so what they realized that the reality is more like a cube. Instead of being a 10 by 10, it was like 10 by 10 by 10. So it was more like 1,000 variables as opposed to 100 variables. And it has to do with the different modifiers. The stuff they used to call junk DNA is actually all those modifiers. This part of the DNA that we thought was junk is actually what makes us different from chimpanzees and worms, at least genetically speaking. We know as Christians there's a lot more that makes us different than that. Okay, the autoimmune epidemic. While 1 in 69 women below the age of 50 will be diagnosed with breast cancer, as many as 1 in 9 women of childbearing years will be diagnosed with an autoimmune illness. This is really common, way too common. Different types of autoimmune disorders attacking different parts of the brain. Different parts of the body. So the brain, like multiple sclerosis, Guillain-Barré, PANS or PANDAS, thyroid, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Graves' disease, bones, rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, muscles and skin and lung and nerves. Peripheral neuropathy is often, so diabetic neuropathy is not autoimmune, but that's one of the most common causes of neuropathy. The next most common is gluten neuropathy. Radiation toxicity may fit in there as well, but a common one is gluten neuropathy, and so that's something we don't often think of. Celiac disease, etc. Anxiety. So where does that fit in? So we had autoimmune disorders. Well, anxiety, most common mental illness in the U.S., 57 million adults, 19% of the U.S. population in 2007. And of course, after the pandemic, that's a lot more people and a whole generation of children. So it's a really common problem. So we're kind of laying some groundwork for gut problems, for autoimmune, and then for some brain disorders. This is one of the brain disorders. Depression is number 1 or number 2 cause of disability worldwide. Mental disorders account for 13% of global disease burden. By 2030, depression is expected to be the largest contributor to disease burden. And now we're finding research connecting the gut and the brain, and including depression and other mental disorders. And we'll talk more about how that works. Depression youth, 42% of high school students feeling sad and hopeless in 2021. So this is right after the pandemic. Well, a lot of people were feeling kind of hopeless at that point. Depression, anxiety in children. 1 in 6 children aged 2 to 8 has a mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. Depression and anxiety have increased over time. 6 to 17-year-olds in 2003, it was 5.4% had depression and anxiety of this age group. In 2012, 9 years later, it went to 8.4, 3% increase. So it's getting worse. So what is happening? The impact of chronic illness. 107 million Americans have at least one of 6 chronic health conditions. 70% of deaths are from chronic health conditions. This is a trillion, $2 trillion. That's the economic burden of chronic disease and mental health. That's a big deal. What can put all this together? So we can talk about, it's a gut disorder. Is it a brain disorder? Is it mental disorder? 43% or 34 million school-age children have at least one of 20 chronic health conditions, excluding being overweight and obesity. So this is a lot of them. It's like, well, that's okay. Well, even if we say, okay, we're not even going to count that. And being at risk for developmental delays, which is another big chunk, all this autism spectrum disorder. You take the risk for that and the overweight obesity out, you still have 1 in 20 children. It's a health problem. It's not just a gut problem or a mental problem. It's a health problem. These kids aren't healthy. These adults aren't healthy. And then that starts to manifest as different symptoms. Our body has, we'll get to our body in a minute. There's built-in solutions for healing or recovering and working correctly. So how do mechanical systems work? What do they need to work? I'll tell you, they need basically 3 things, but this is just fuel. Okay, great. So that provides the energy, right? So what else you need other than fuel? And we can say that's the energy or the power. The motor, all right? And so motor is what? If you were to categorize it.
Well, it's the engine that burns the fuel.
Okay, all right. And then what else do you need? Other stuff in a car. Okay, in a car though. What? Person? Okay, all right. That's actually going to get all of it. If we say parts is the engine and the tires and the frame, right? And then power is the fuel. And then information, that's the intelligence that makes it do what we want it to do. That's the person in this case. Okay. What about a computer? What do they need to work? AI. Yeah. Okay, a processing unit, right? So that's parts, right? What else does it need?
Intelligence, information.
Okay, yeah, it needs information. And that, yep, so really it's parts, power, and information. So the keyboard and CPU and all that, and it needs power cord, and it needs information. It needs a person to make it do what it needs to do, or AI, which had a person who makes it do what it does. So what do living systems need? What do they need to work properly?
Oxygen.
All right, oxygen, nutrition,
and
intelligence. All right, so intelligence or information, right? And we got nutrition, and exercise, activity. Yep. So it's, to make it simple, parts, power, and information. Parts, body parts, right? Power, that's like the fuel. And information that travels along the nervous system to tell things what to do. So how do you know if a living system is working properly? How do you find out? Yes?
You're sleeping well.
Okay, yep.
My own personal experience, you're sleeping well through the night. You don't have anything that feels odd in your body. You have energy. Okay, energy, good sleep. Those are actually 2 of the factors that I use to assess if somebody's making changes that are good. So yeah, that's good. Now, if you were like, okay, I don't know what to do. Well, who would you go to find out if your parts are working right? What kind of doctor is a parts doctor? Yep, so medical doctor. So chiropractor does some parts too. So generally we think of medical doctors, they're specialists like eye doctors and bone doctors and foot doctors and spine doctors, and right. So these are parts doctors, and certainly chiropractors can fit into that as well. Power. So here we're looking at different kind of doctors. Naturopaths. Naturopathic doctors are functional medicine practitioners. So I do functional medicine. Naturopathy is a licensed profession that essentially does that.
And what about information? Who takes care of making sure the information is flowing well? What's that?
Ourselves.
Yeah, we have a personal responsibility for sure. But what type of doctor would go, hey, your information flow is not good? Yeah, neurological. Chiropractic neurologist. Yes, functional neurologist, chiropractor, acupuncturist. I'd say they fit into that category as well. They're not going to really work nerves, but the acupuncture meridians, so I think they'd fit into that. So parts, power, and information. Now, because systems are made of parts, and they are designed to eventually, I wouldn't say they're not designed to, but they do eventually do what? What happens to parts?
We're out.
Yep, and we're out, or they break down. Yep. So what happens if you take away or interfere with the parts, power, information of a plant? It dies. And if you just take some of it away, they just get sick. But then eventually it'll die. So like less light, polluted water, poison in the soil, these are stressors to the plant. Alana, can you check the temperature? Run it down a couple degrees. So what happens if you break down or disturb the parts, power, information for a human being, like less sunlight or less movement or polluted water, food, toxins? What happens to the human body? Yeah, it's going to break down too. And this is really just cause and effect. This is what you would expect. It's not that that's a disease. It's like, well, if same thing with a plant. It's like, if you don't give it what it needs to be healthy, it's not going to be healthy. You wouldn't take a plant and go, okay, well, what medication do we need, or what surgery we need to do to this plant because it seems to be wilting. It's like, you need to water it. That's what my wife says. She's like, you need some water if you don't feel good. You need water. She literally like, you're like a plant. And that's good. That's the foundation, right? We're about 80% water, depending on the parts of our body. So that is a good place to start. Symptoms are the natural effect of our parts, power, and information, providing feedback in response or just reacting to the cause. So we always want to look for the cause. What? Why? I'm a big why guy. Why? I want to know what's behind that, or what's behind that, or what's behind that. And that's why I give you guys so much homework, physical, chemical, and mental, because I want you to help me get great results. I need help. So let's hear a story. 72-year-old young lady, and still getting better.
Hi, my name is Marietta Diaz. I'll be turning 72 this year. I used to have where you come on a birth, you can feel the acid in your throat.
Oh, I messed that up. So apparently that doesn't work.
Hi, my name is Marietta Diaz. I'll be turning 72 this year.
Nice to meet you again. Again.
I used to have where you come on a birth, you can feel the acid in your throat, when you open your mouth, and I can feel some food coming up. Was that every time you ate? I just often. Very often. And what kind of things do you feel like helped this time around? Was it just your adjustments, or did you do anything else different? I also have Dr. Hobbs also gave me some of those vitamins. Yeah, that also helped. So your adjustments and your vitamins, and the way you guys teach me how the kind of food you eat, the stress, that with all the, lessons that I learned from you guys, you gave me like all this handouts, you text me all those things, so that it really helps. It really helps. Okay. Because before, just like you're sluggish, right? Now I have more energy.
Well, that's like a perfect patient, right? So like, well, just do what you tell me. So that's exciting. All right, conventional model, where is the focus? So if we think about, here's genetics, here's body system or function, and so the body parts, different systems of the body, and then the symptoms or the effect, like food sensitivities, etc. Where does conventional medicine focus their efforts? Like if you go to the doctor and say, I've got a problem, what are they going to be, where in this are they going to be spending their, where are they going to start from?
Symptoms.
Yeah, they tend to start with the symptoms. They go, okay, well, what is, can we want to name this. If we name it, then we can work backwards and know what to do for it, right? So they work really hard to name stuff. I don't work very hard to name anything because that's not very helpful to me. I want to know what the cause is. So yeah, they generally will try to figure out a name, and then they have different medications that have been improved for those things. And if you're talking about mental disorders, those often are really just diagnosed from symptoms. Right? There's a, if it's ADHD, it's like, well, there's a list of attention deficit hyperactivity symptoms. You tell me if you do it, how often you do it, how severe it is, and then I'll see if we can check off this list. And it's like, oh yeah, you have 8 of 10. So okay, yes, you have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It's like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, because you told me you do. Because I checked off the list. It's like, wow, that's kind of weird. And so now we can give you medications, because we found if we give medications to people who check off enough of these things, that it seems to have, now we check off less of them. And that's nice, but it's like, well, are we getting to the cause? It's like, and many of these medications, even the ones that have been around forever, they'll be like, you look up what's the mechanism of action, how does it work? And like, well, we're not exactly sure, but we're pretty sure it doesn't cause any damage, and it definitely makes us check off fewer boxes on these symptoms, so it seems like a good thing. So yeah, I would say that is right, symptoms. So we've got genetics, those are super important. Digestive system, malnutrition, inflammation, immune system, detoxification, the whole different body systems and body functions coming over to have different symptoms or effects, and then we can name them: food sensitivity, immune deficiency, leaky gut, malabsorption, and other named conditions based on symptoms or body parts or body systems. So this is a whole body disorder. That's what we talked about, those mental disorders and all those statistics. But people are just sick. Even children are sick. And if they start to manifest with different named disorders, I use this picture when I talk about neurodevelopmental. I use this picture when I talk about dementia. I use this picture when I talk about all sorts of neuropathy, because I just changed what's down here, because it's the same body, same environment, same process. It just ends up with different names depending on people's, it can be genetics, may predispose you to it. And then you have environmental stresses, and then those start to manifest in different dysfunctions in the body. And they change epigenetics. This is actually that deeper layer of that human genome I was talking about. It's the modifications to the genes. And that's how you modify genes. And some of these can be passed on to children as well. And how do you modify genetics, or how do you modify environmental stress? It is done with physical, chemical, and mental stresses, that are environmental stresses, that modifies the genetic expression. It doesn't modify the genes, but it modifies the expression of the genes, which then modifies the function of the body. But we can have stress, but we can also support with physical, chemical, mental. So they can be a positive thing and not a negative thing. So we turn that around and use it for good. Who's in control of the body systems? What system? There's a part of the body that's in control of the rest of the body. What is it? The brain, right? The nervous system. And the brain is the most important part of that. It controls all these other body systems. Well, so when I'm looking to address health, I want to address the cause. Focusing on wellness. as opposed to focusing on disease or symptoms. So where should we start? Should we start over here or should we start over here? Okay. Somebody's commenting online, so we're going to, Alondra's going to share with me, and we're going to.
So it looks like it's from Deacon. He wants to share his story too.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll do that in just a moment. So once we finish this slide, then somebody else is going to share their story. Today, they actually just shared it with us and said, hey, would you come online and share that with us? So he's going to share. That's it. Great. All right. So where should we start? Yeah, and I even put that upside down just so we can know this is the upside down way to do it. I don't really approve of that. So let's start with the cause. And we can treat the brain just like a muscle. We can activate it with different sensory, motor. We'll also look nutritional, so we exercise it and we nourish it. We'll also give you guidance of what to do so that you can support your own recovery and make lifestyle changes. Okay, so let's share. I'm going to have you go on mic and you can just read it.
So this story is from Deegan. So Deegan said, hello, I'm here to share my story. I've been dealing with gut problems, waking up for 4 to 5 years, interfering with schoolwork. Dr. Hobbs recently helped track down and find solutions to my elusive issues.
All right, cool. So some key findings here. 4 to 5 years, that was right, Alondra?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, wasn't able to go to school. This is our second story. We have a patient who couldn't go to school because of intestinal issues. So we were celebrating. And so Deegan's now back to school, morning classes, which was his hardest time was morning, and so he's doing morning classes. Mom said she was kind of scared. It's like, oh no, but he's doing great. So he said about 70% better. So that was huge. Age in his early 20s. Yeah. All right, so what's the gut-brain cascade? This is a different way of looking at that graph, the chart we just saw. So we have a genetic or environmental causes, and we have gut problems. So gut bacteria imbalance, too much bad bacteria or yeast overgrowth, caused by multiple triggers. Things like C-sections. C-sections are a problem. They're kind of a convenience these days, right? Or a baby to order. What day do you want to have your baby on? And I thought until just a few months ago that C-sections were actually really gentle on the baby. Of course, not on the mom, but I thought they were really gentle on the baby. I thought, well, you just cut them open and lift them right out. And then I learned it's actually they'll often use more force on pulling the baby out, a lot of force, than they would with a vaginal birth. And I was like, wow. And you can imagine, I forget the numbers and the force, but how much does the baby weigh? 6 to 10 pounds, right? I was actually 10 pounds, 6 ounces. Didn't quite grow into my birth weight. But if you take a baby like me, right? So let's say you got a 9-pound body, we'll say. Well, babies got pretty big heads, maybe an 8-pound body, 2-pound head. So can you imagine taking that baby and holding him by the head, right, and just walking him across the room? It's like, that'd be stupid, right? It's like, that's ridiculous. Well, that's 8 pounds of force. There's a lot more than 8 pounds of force that doctor uses to pull that baby out. So the fact that babies, and we'll talk about birth injuries, is pretty common. But C-section, actually, we're talking about gut health in this case. C-section babies don't have the bacteria they would had they been delivered vaginally. Antibiotic use, pain relievers as we get older, not being breastfed, chronic stress, Western diet. So yeah, all those things contribute to poor gut health and more. So then you get leaky gut. What does leaky gut mean? Well, leaky gut means that, and I'll talk more about this in the next slide. So that leads to autoimmune reactions, immune depression, so more likely to get infections, but also allergies or food intolerances or brain inflammation or auto-intoxication. What is that? Auto-intoxication is where you intoxicate yourself, like the autoimmune response where you attack your own body at the immune system. The intoxication is where you have overgrowth of bacteria, yeast, and then they're pooping toxins, and then you're absorbing those with the leaky gut and recirculating. So you're auto-intoxicating. And then that causes leaky brain. Often with leaky gut, there is leaky brain. And your brain has really this, it's called the blood-brain barrier, BBB, and it filters things out. It's only very select things that can get through that filter. But if it starts to leak, then you get more things in there and more likely to cause inflammation. Multiple nutritional deficiencies and metabolic toxicities contribute to gut-brain disorders. So it's like that. Some normal gut facts. Contains 38 trillion bacteria and 500 to 1,000 different species of bacteria. There's a lot of stuff going on down there. 90% of the body's serotonin is made in the gut. We think of serotonin as a feel-good hormone in the brain, but it's actually much more produced in your gut. 70% of your immune cells are in your digestive system. So when we talk about immune problem, first thing I think about is the gut. More nerve signaling to the brain than from the brain to the gut. The gut's talking a lot. We talk about a gut feeling, that's been around forever. It's like maybe there's something to that. There's definitely something to that. And it's partly related to your gut, not just your brain. All right, so what is leaky gut? Leaky gut syndrome, food and drink and drug triggers causing intestinal damage. So we'll come to that. This is a diagram of your gut. You've got multiple layers of muscle around the gut. And then inside, you've got this, it's a tube, right? If you, theoretically, you could take a string and swallow it and then poop it out, and you could have whole two ends of it. It would be never really entering your body, even though it's all the way through your gut. Kind of weird and kind of gross to think about. Okay, but it gives you a visual that it's never really entered your body. So when we, so this is where it starts to enter your body. So if we take a little blow up of that little spot, and we go over to here, then we see this is a blood vessel, and this is a cell. And so these projections are not the same as these projections. These are single cells. These are microscopic little things. But that's really the functional unit. So normally, these villi, these little hairs on these cells, they're interactive. And there's meaning that they actively bring in particles, nutrients, right? So they actively absorb them. And there's these tight junctions in between that only allow certain things to get through. Okay, so that's good, and that means you get good stuff into your bloodstream and not bad stuff. But if you have bad stuff, poor diet, antibiotics, infections, chronic pain, that was one we didn't list before, chronic pain can cause gut problems as well. Alcohol, reactive nerves, toxins, mental stress, those can create a leaky gut. So then you have this breakdown of these junctions between cells. So stuff can leak through, get into your bloodstream, or stuff may get through, or more often, actually things don't get through that should. They no longer grab the nutrients and pull them in. They're kind of broken down, or these villi are blunted, kind of worn off, and they can see that when they go in and scope people and they go, oh, you have celiac disease. That's what they're looking for, is if you have blunted villi. Okay, so then you get stuff into your bloodstream that shouldn't be there, and you don't get stuff that should be there. Blood-brain barrier problems, inflammation, autoimmunity, and nutritional deficiency. That's what leaky gut is. So, oh, do you have leaky gut? That's what it is. So what are some signs that you have leaky gut? Bloating, gas, cramps, food allergies, sensitivities, hormonal problems. Leaky brain, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, brain fog, memory problems, mood issues, anxiety, depression, ADHD, other neurodevelopmental issues, or autoimmune disease. A lot of things, right? And we talk about autoimmune disease. Well, there's more than 100 different autoimmune diseases. A lot of things can be caused by this leaky gut and leaky brain. So that's why I've started working with gut issues from the very beginning, because I knew if I was going to help people get well, we had to address their gut health. What can you do about it? So here's where you can take some notes. But this is a slide I'll send to you, so you won't have to take notes if you ask for us to email these to you. So top 7 gut offenders and healers. Gluten in most grains. Gluten is not bad for everybody, but it's super bad for some people and moderately bad for a lot of people. So it's usually best to go off glutens and grains for most people. Sugar and artificial sweeteners. Conventional meat, what does that mean? Well, meat that's not more natural, like grass-fed. And so they even say grass-fed, and I'll talk about that later. But your regular meat you get at the grocery store is going to have a lot more omega-6 inflammatory fatty acids. Conventional dairy, the same thing. More often have hormones and other processed, and it's just beat up. It's just not natural anymore. Raw milk versus milk you find in the grocery store that's homogenized and pasteurized, they're 2 different foods. Right? One of them has got a lot of, conventional dairy has a lot of nutrients, it's got a lot of calories, it's got a lot of protein, it's got some nutrients they add to it, but it's not alive anymore. It's not a natural food. It's kind of an altered food product. Refined vegetable oils tend to cause inflammation. Medications, especially non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, these are common medications people take for pain. Antibiotics, antacids, those cause gut problems. And environmental toxins. Tap water can cause it. Lots of chlorine or other problems in tap water. Pesticides, many skin, hair, and cleaning products. A lot of things cause problems in the gut. What are things that can help you? Well, good water, purified, mineral-rich, low sugar diet, local fresh fruits and vegetables, fermented vegetables. This is where you get good bacteria. Live fermented, you can get a lot of good. Almost every society, you can think of some major food product they have that's fermented. Miso is a Japanese thing, I think. Kimchi is more of a Korean, right? Sauerkraut is more of the German or Eastern European, right? So all these different things. We've got yogurt, which sometimes, especially if it's homemade yogurt, then it's going to be actually quite good, but others may not be so much. Okay, organic, free-range, grass-fed, and finished. Because they do this now. They'll say, oh, this is grass-fed beef. It's like, well, guess what? Every beef is grass-fed at the beginning. Every single one. Because they're not going to just feed them grain from the birth till they slaughter them. They're going to put them out in the field, go live out there for a while, and then you come in, and now we're going to fatten you up for the last 6 weeks or so, and then we'll slaughter you. So it has to say grass-finished as well. Wild-caught salmon, cod, halibut, and raw cultured organic dairy. Okay, so what is the connection between the brain and the gut? There is a literal connection. The autonomic nervous system forms this connection. The vagus nerve. Okay, here's an anatomy question. Anybody know what number nerve the vagus nerve is?
Let's say 5, but I have.
That is a great guess because it's the only one we've gotten. And it's within the range of 12 because there's only, so it's number 10. So you didn't say 22, right? And you didn't say 1, so that was pretty good. The vagus nerve connects to the brain to the digestive system. Parts, power, information. This is where the information comes, but it takes some parts to get there and needs the power to generate those signals. All right, this is just gives you an illustration of, this is the vagus nerve, and this is going down to the diaphragm, this is the heart, so, and all the organs that would be operating down there. Just a visual of how powerful this is, how much is involved, this vagus nerve. The autonomic nervous system is a very complex recipe for, if we were to talk about a recipe of how the body works, how it can work properly. There's all kinds of things going on. There's the parasympathetic part, and there's the sympathetic. Sympathetic is survival, fight, flight, and freeze. Parasympathetic is resting, digesting, repairing, and developing. It's growth and potential, and it's mostly the vagus nerve. So this is that parasympathetic vagus nerve coming off down here to all those different organs. And the sympathetic is all throughout here and going to the same organs. And they do different things for different body functions. And they basically work almost opposite. So inhibits salivation, increases salivation. Slows heart rate, accelerates heart rate. You need them both at different times. You need to survive. You need to be able to survive if something terrible happens. But if you spend too much time there, then you don't do this growth and potential, rest and digest and repair. We need a proper balance. So what causes excess fight or flight? Your adrenal gland. Okay, now you're talking like a college graduate. I want you to think more like a 5th grader. That's accurate. But what are the things that cause your adrenal gland to activate?
Stress, being frightened.
Being frightened, being mentally stressed. Okay. And what else? You have anything for us? All right. So that was mental. We have 2 other sources of stress. What's another source of stress? Physical. Okay. So that could be getting hurt, it could be an auto accident, right? Causing pain. It could be over-exercising. It could be under-exercising. And so we got mental, physical, and what's our third one? No. Chemical. All right, good job, Alondra. So chemical is that could be exposure to a bacteria. So this is where we're getting into the medical field. It's like, yeah, that's our stuff. That's good. Okay, so yeah, that's important. So overexposure to a virus, overexposure to a bacteria, overexposure to pesticides, overexposure to bad air in general, like we have in the valley. These are all things that cause chemical stress. Auto-intoxication from overgrowth of yeast or bacteria in your gut, chemical stress. Pain in your gut, kind of mental stress and a physical stress. Can't go to college because I don't know what my gut's going to do, mental stress. So spending too much time in here, then it starts to shut down these functions and we get depression of that vagus nerve. And we're going to talk a lot about this vagus nerve and how do you make that work better. Dr. Cryan is always complaining about something. So stress alters gut-brain axis. Perceived stress. Perceived stress. It doesn't have to be actual mental stress that is caused by something that would stress someone else out. But if you perceive it stressful, then it's stressful. Right? It just takes the perception of it. Now, it may be because of a really good reason, like there's a boa constrictor wrapping around my legs. You should be stressed out, and you should have a sympathetic reaction that leads to survival. You see a boa constrictor in a book, you should not have that reaction. Right? You're worried about what's going to happen in 7 years. That's a perceived stress. It's probably not going to happen, right? Good or bad. You just can't plan that far ahead and know what's going to happen. So perceived stress or worrying about what happened in the past. Right? So these are all things worsen gut function and pain. So he's a researcher, by the way, so all those fancy letters after his name. And he came up with this picture how you have the brain affecting the gut and immune system affecting the gut and affecting the adrenal gland, good job, at cortisol release, and then they come back up and affect the brain. So perceived stress worsens gut function and pain. This is some research that he did. Yep, so brain to gut. And then gut alters the stress response. This was really interesting. A healthy gut reduces the response to stress. What does that mean? In a good way. Because if you have an unhealthy gut, then you have this overreaction to a perceived stress response. And they did this, most of these studies in mice, so they could change things rapidly and stress them out and see how they responded. And it's just not as appropriate to do that to people. They used to do that, though. Starving college students made a lot of money that way. We got a lot of good research out of that in the 60s and 70s. So reduce response to stress and restores nerve growth and survival. So when they had these mice, they had normal gut bacteria, or they had their bacteria restored. Then they had better nerve growth, better survival, and more appropriate responses to stress. So when they saw boa constrictor in the book, they didn't freak out. That wasn't how they stressed him out, but same sort of thing. So what are some signs that you have autonomic dysfunction? Or we'll think autonomic, we can also think of that as vagus, right? The autonomic nervous system, that's the automatic, runs all the organs. We saw that picture before. There was the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Parasympathetic is mostly, now they're switched, this makes it harder. Parasympathetic is mostly vagus, which is this one here. These two need to be switched. But anyway, if they're not working right, constipation, depression, so constipation, that's decreased gut movement. All right? Depression, that's decreased brain activity, just don't want to do things. Hormonal issues, chronic fatigue, etc., etc. High sympathetic, anxiety, diarrhea. Now you have overactivity of the gut function. Excessive sweating, manic, focus problems, neurodevelopmental issues. All right, so now we'll do a couple studies on vagus nerve, and then we're going to wrap this up here. Vagus tone, when they talk about that, that's autonomic nervous system health. It's your automatic, the nerves are in your organs, right? So when we think of vagus or autonomic, we're thinking the part of the nervous system that runs the organs. This is the gut-brain connection. Damaged sympathetic function may have a role in development of multiple sclerosis. Lower vagal tone may increase lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, cardiovascular risk. Associated with chronic fatigue syndrome, associated with sleep and fibromyalgia. The influence of the autonomic nervous system in the genesis or the creation of sleep disorders. So resistance to and resilience despite stress. This is what we really want, right? It's like, okay, we're all going to be stressed. I can't get away from all stresses. How do I get more resistant to stress and resilient, so to bounce back from that exposure? Hans Selye, who was the guy who actually invented the word stress as it relates to mental problems, it's not stress that kills you. It's our reaction to it. So you know some people who can they just keep getting hit left and right, and there's like, it's like they say, water off a duck's back, right? It's like, whatever. So part of that's personality, and that's really cool, and that's me. I'm that kind of like, what do you do, right? That helps me with my faith in God. I'm just like, you know what? I'm not in charge of this thing, so I know how it ends, though, but I know it's not going to go great. So that's really cool, but not everybody's built that way, have the personality. Some people are a little more concerned about things. But it's our reaction. So whether it's just the way you're built or not, our reaction to stressors is what creates that dysfunction in our body. So how can we change our reaction? All right, so we want to find there's some bottom-up approaches. Bottom-up would be like gut or things inside, and then affecting the nervous system that way with functional medicine. So this is my son, and he was doing great until he wasn't doing great. So this is him at about 9 years old, about the time I was sick. Right, at about 9, I was spending my time in the hospital on Christmas. And his favorite snack was an apple. He'd go grab an apple out of the refrigerator. He didn't know that eggs were not green or orange because we'd always grind up carrots or spinach and do his scrambled eggs. So he thought that's the way they made them. So he was putting healthy stuff in his body, but he wasn't being healthy. And he ended up with pneumonia. I was like, what happened? And then we gave him antibiotics and he got well. And it's like, okay, great. Like, so, I appreciate the disease management system, the emergency system of our medical system, but they didn't ask, okay, well, how did this happen? And I want to know. And so fortunately I was able to ask those questions and pursue that. But the success was he lived, he took antibiotics, all well. It's like, no. This is the very beginning of our journey. This is not the end. So we did some lab testing. We found out he was not absorbing fatty acids, fats from his gut. These are his actual levels. These are all very high. He was not absorbing fats, and he was not absorbing proteins. And this is his nutrient levels. He had these really high needs for B vitamins and antioxidants. It's like, wow, this is like he's putting me in his body better than any other kid on the planet. But we found he wasn't absorbing them. He had gut problems. So we worked really hard to fix his gut issues, and we did. And then he started to thrive. And we saw that picture earlier. This is him, he and I, after a 8-mile hike or so up in the Mineral King. So he's doing great now. Bottom-up causes with functional medicine. So we can do lab testing now. We have even better testing than we did back then. Look for things like oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction and omega balance, toxic exposure, methylation imbalance. So what are these things? Looking for rust from free radicals, nuclear power plant in each cell, omega-3 and 6 oil balance, toxic load, and ability to activate or convert nutrients. That's really what it means. We find about 150 different values off of this one test. And it helps us find information about malabsorption and dysbiosis and yeast overgrowth. This is from a finger prick, and you fill up little circles on a card, and urine sample. We got all this and 100 more from that. So we can get some great information. 4 steps to heal the gut. This is what we do. It's the 4 R's. Remove things that harm the gut. Like what? Do I have anything here? Yes, this is the power. So remove things that harm the gut, like food sensitivities. Sensitivities, things that are like a gluten sensitivity or a dairy problem, right? So, but we can run a test and see what foods are actually you're sensitive to. And then, of course, just good food. You want good food to go. You don't want these trashy food that's definitely going to irritate the gut. Replace missing digestive functions. So if you need digestive enzymes or things like that. Rebalance with beneficial bacteria. So if there's not enough good bacteria, then we want to re-inoculate or put good bacteria in. That can be from fermented foods or supplements. Repair the gut with food, because food, that fiber, the bacteria, they digest it, they break it down, and then actually that makes the good bacteria make food for the intestines. So instead of making toxins that we can absorb, this good food and good bacteria make nutrients for our intestines to be more healthy. And they make vitamin K and some other things. And then supplements, we'll provide some supplements sometimes as well. So those are the 4 It's. That's 4 steps. Sometimes it's really simple. So altering the bottom-up causes with functional medicine. Vagus nerve. The vagus nerve mediates the relationship between bacteria and their body effects. So what does that mean? If you have good bacteria or those good foods that are making nutrients and other chemicals, the vagus nerve sends those signals up, and it has the impact on the brain. Is psychobiotic, is bacteria affecting the brain. And the vagus nerve is the one that connects those signals. So you've got the bacteria in your gut, and then you've got the mental health. The vagus nerve somehow, we don't know exactly how it does this yet, but the vagus nerve helps translate that into healthy brain function. Healthy gut, healthy brain. It's pretty amazing. So this is some of the research that showed, the beginning to show that reaction, this psychobiotic effect. And when they sever the vagus nerve, it abolishes the response to psychobiotic administration. So the good bacteria no longer have the beneficial effect in the brain if you don't have the vagus nerve. So that's how they knew, hey, it's the vagus nerve. It's not just a blood system thing, it's the nervous system thing. Vagus nerve, super important. We can measure the function of the vagus nerve. This is a roundabout way. We're not exactly on the vagus nerve, but we know there's 2 parts of the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system. We've got mostly the vagus nerve on one side and the sympathetic or the survival on the other side. So we're measuring the autonomic nervous system function, and we're measuring the vagus versus the other. And so we plotted on a little graph like this. You stick your finger in a device, it measures your heart rate variability. Not going to go into all that right now, but it's not just your heart rate, it's the variations, and that tells us how well your vagus nerve is functioning. So this basically tells us here the vagal tone is measured by heart rate variability, or HRV, and this is your reserve ability to adapt to stress. So when we measure this, like this person, this is them here, they need to be up here. They are running out of reserve to adapt to stress. Stress causes all these problems, right? Negative stresses. And so if you have a low adaptability, then you're going to have more likely to have symptoms and system breakdown. So we can measure that. And then we want to improve it. How do we improve it? How do you guys think we could improve that? How could we improve the nervous system or the vagus nerve in particular? And yeah, let's give you that for now.
Well, the last slide had
The 4 R's, right? Get the gut healthier, and then you're going to make the nervous system healthier, including the vagus nerve. Yeah, good job. Well, they've come up with some ways to do this. They have stimulators on the vagus nerve. So you can actually access the vagus nerve here, and then they can electrocute it. And they actually do surgeries where they'll come in and they'll wrap it for people with really like bad irritable bowel syndrome or something, or bad intestinal issues. They'll actually electrocute it regularly. It doesn't hurt. It's just small. But it actually improves their gut health. So, well, that's pretty cool. And so there's devices now that we can actually stimulate it electrically, or you can do it at home and you can activate it that way. And that's okay. That's kind of an outside-in approach, but it's working. Using nerve stimulators might prevent the progression of debilitating and deadly diseases. So that's cool. Activating the vagus nerve for gut and inflammatory disease. The vagus nerve has anti-inflammatory properties. The vagus nerve seems to be a good therapeutic target in inflammatory conditions. So, okay, good. Again, these guys are talking about electrocuting it. 10 ways to improve your vagus nerve. So you can find these on TikTok. I didn't find them on TikTok, but you can. So positive social relationships. Well, that's kind of interesting. Yeah. That's this top-down approach, inside out. Cold exposure. It's stressing your body out, but if you do that gradually, it actually can help quite a bit. Gargling. That's activating cranial nerve 9 and 10, and it actually works to activate the vagus nerve. Singing, chanting, humming. So these old guys might have been onto something. In fact, the monks who were, right? There was something to that. Massage, laughter, yoga and tai chi, breathing deeply and slowly. We call this diaphragm breathing. Right? It activates the vagus nerve. So, Anna, we do this with patients, right? Do you remember? You don't have to tell somebody in particular, but do you remember some people we've taken their blood pressure and then rechecked them?
After doing the
breathing exercise, yep. So just share some, like a general experience you have with somebody.
Can't really think of anybody off the top of my head, but I know that when blood pressure is really high, we have them do the deep breathing, where it takes 5 seconds to inhale, about 5 seconds to exhale. And they do that for a few minutes, and then we go back and check the blood pressure, and it's normal.
Yeah. Very simple. And so what we're doing is we're activating that vagus nerve, which then counters the survival stress sympathetic system and activates more of the vagus rest, digest, and heal system. Exercise that's not too much exercise. You can't over-exercise and then stress your body out too much. Chiropractic adjustment. So we do this sometimes. We've done some testing in our office where we'll check someone's heart rate variability or their autonomic nervous system function or the vagal tone, and then we'll do an adjustment, and then we'll see if it improves on that little color graph, and we'll see it bump up. So yeah, often 5, 10, sometimes more points right after adjustment. But then you want to maintain it with other lifestyle habits, what you eat, drink, breathe, think, move, and sleep. Here's a couple examples of actual patients we did those measurements on. At 8:15, their before measurement was 48 out of 100. They were right here. We want them up in the green. And then after, at 8:45, they went up to here. So they went from the end of the red up into almost to the yellow. So from 48 to 59. That was from mental relaxation exercise. From chiropractic. Another time went from 55 to 75. This was pretty awesome. So went deep into the red and up into the yellow from an adjustment. So that was pretty cool.
Why is chiropractic number 10?
It was a surprise at the end. Yes. It's not the last choice. It's the most exciting. Okay. But if you don't work to maintain it, then it won't last for very long without doing things that kept you from getting messed up in the first place. Chiropractic and vagal tone, a healthy autonomic nervous system balance after correction of vertebral subluxation. So it's just some research showing the same thing that I just showed you. What is a vertebral subluxation? Essentially, it's an imbalance or joint that's stuck. Usually they're not out of place, they're just stuck in place. They're not able to move. And in this case, we're showing how it can change the flow of cerebral spinal fluid from around the brain through down to the spinal cord. There's some pretty amazing imaging studies showing the change in cerebral spinal fluid flow around the brain before and after an adjustment. So structure affects neurological and chemical. So the structure is meaning the spine and the joints, and neurological and physiological impact of vertebral subluxation. So it just does things, right? It affects autonomic balance. We've learned that. Decreased blood flow to the brain, cerebral spinal fluid alterations. It affects blood flow. It affects cerebral spinal flow, all sorts of things. Neck adjustments had a parasympathetic, which is vagus nerve, the rest, digest, and heal effect. Just more research. Reduction of inflammatory chemicals. This was kind of interesting. So reduced inflammatory chemicals are called cytokines, was observed in subjects receiving spinal adjustments. So that's pretty cool, cytokines. Inflammation, we know, going back to that, inflammation causes all sorts of problems in the body, right? And so the solution is not anti-inflammatory medications. The solution is getting to the cause. And this is part of it. We also want to address that nutritional aspect. What's causing the inflammation in the body? Why is it trying to put out a fire, right? Chiropractic and vagal tone. This is another way we measure it. Autonomic nerve imbalance may be evaluated by measuring skin temperature differences along the spine. So this is another scan that we do. These values can be used as a standard in assessment of sympathetic nerve function. Skin temperature differentials are associated with vertebral subluxation. So when we scan it, that tells us there's nerves to organs may have trouble, and you probably have a subluxation there because there's different research. Lower vagal tone. What is the vagus nerve? What number is the vagus nerve? 10. Yep. Out of 10 out of 12. Yep. So number 10. Conclusion with this research, patients with irritable bowel syndrome appear to experience symptoms that may be the result of changes in vagus nerve functioning. Depression and anxiety disorders exhibit abnormally low vagus nerve activity. All right. One more story.
Hi, my name is Sierra, and I became very ill about a year ago and was experiencing a lot of really severe gut problems like bloating, diarrhea, indigestion. I took a lack of appetite. I lost about 15 pounds, and I'm already very thin, so I really didn't want to. I was having really bad headaches and migraines, and I went to many different doctors in the valley and in Santa Barbara, like the Samson Clinic and a gastroenterologist there. I did different testing, allergy tests, stool tests, blood tests, and everything was coming back that I was fine, and all these doctors were telling me that you're totally okay. But I was just super sick and very discouraged. So I came to a friend recommended Synergy Chiropractic, and I was super hesitant and nervous to go. But I am so glad that I did, and they've just started healing me. And I look forward to continuing care with them and healing more and more. So I'm already starting to get a lot better. I no longer have most of the symptoms, so I'm super excited and thankful to be here. So I had to take off about a month and a half from work. During that time, I hike for work. I work in the national park, and I was super weak. I would stand up and get super dizzy, and just wasn't able to eat, so I could barely work at all. Now I'm feeling so much better. I'm eating, full meals every day. I have energy. I wake up most days feeling really well. I used to wake up every day with a headache. now. I feel a lot more energized. Some days are still a little up and down, but as I continue coming here, I'm just continuing to see more and more improvements. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so there's now solid evidence that adjusting the spine changes brain function. What causes the vertebral subluxation? Is stress. What are the 3 categories of stress? Chemical, mental, and physical. Good job. All right, and they interact with each other. So yeah, it's a mess. It's not just one isolation. They all interact. That's why we call our office synergy. It's recognizing that you can have multiple things that feed in together. It's like sitting on 3 tacks. You remove one of them. It's like, well, that should feel really good, but it doesn't feel any different. So you got to get rid of all 3 of them. You might need multiple solutions to actually recover, and so we consider that. Here's a little bit about babies. 1,250 infants were evaluated during the first 5 days of life. 90% had suffered some form of birth trauma, strain of the neck or the cranium, and 10% had severe trauma. Spinal cord and brain stem injuries occur often during the birth process, but frequently escape diagnosis. Why do you think that is?
Maybe they're just not looking for it.
Yeah. So what are they looking for? The doctors who deliver the baby, what are they looking for?
With delivery.
After delivery, it's like, is this a healthy baby? Are they breathing? Right? So they got this called the APGAR score, right? So yeah, are they breathing? Is they have blood? Do they have all their body parts? Is there any bleeding or hemorrhaging? Right? So basically, are they going to live for the next few days? Right? And can we give them some shots? So they're not looking for dysfunction. They're not looking for subluxations. So they're not going to find it, because that's not an immediate emergency care. And honestly, we want them looking for those other things first, right? I don't want the first person, overlooking a dislocated ankle and going, oh, there's a problem in the neck. It's like, no, let's address the dislocated ankle. But now let's go to that, because this is really, we learned this blood flow. This can affect their development for sure. This is a huge deal. But there's things that are even more important than that initially. But then we go to the next step. And that's why we see a lot of babies within days of their birth and checking them out. All right. There's some side benefits to chiropractic adjustments. Things like, they did a study of asymptomatic subjects. These are kids who didn't have any, or kids are not just kids, people with no symptoms coming to a chiropractor. And these are some of the benefits they noticed. Autonomic function improved, cardiovascular, immune function, muscle strength, overall athletic ability, heart rate variability, range of motion, breathing, reaction time, etc. Why would people have these improvements with chiropractic adjustments?
Allowing the body to function as it's supposed to, instead of being backed up by blockage.
Yeah, so it's removing blockage, allowing it to function like it's supposed to, improving those nervous system. And the nervous system controls what? The gut and everything else. And so if we can improve that function, the nervous system function, then everything else can work better. So what does an adjustment look like? Here we're doing with just little children. So this is cool. This is like the baby that we mentioned earlier. You can see what the adjustment looks like. That's the adjustment. It looks like I'm just an uncle holding the baby, right? But with my fingers, I'm doing something very specific. That's it. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so now we're at the last couple slides here, the last 3 or 4 slides. What do we do? What is the solution? What do we provide people? If somebody has a gut problem or a brain problem. So part number 1 is the history, spinal and nervous system screening. So we're going to sit down and we're going to talk. What kind of things have you done already? What were the things that led up to this? And that can give me some clues about the cause. And there's a lot. I won't go into it. There's a lot we can get from that, right? So we want to hear from you. Make sure that you feel heard and you've shared your experience. But then we want to analyze things. We ask about trauma history, treatment history, recovery history. We look into structural, chemical, and mental things. Analyze some questionnaire that goes over just this different symptoms. And then we do a spinal motion palpation. I use my hands to actually feel your spine and how it's moving, because your spine loaded with nerves that affect the nervous system. But then we'll also do a nervous system scan to detect spinal nerve interference, like the ones we talked about earlier. This is normal. This is what a lot of people will look like. The next part is more structural and neurological testing. So we'll look at autonomic nervous system function, that heart rate variability. We'll check sensory function, motor function testing, and more. We'll check posture. Often we'll check gait. We'll often do a digital foot analysis, looking for the foundation of your structure. X-ray if needed. And then we go over the results. It's like, okay, what did we find and what do we think we can do? And then often we'll do a therapeutic trial at that point. I'll give you one example of a therapeutic trial. For a lot of people, a couple today, we do an adjustment. How do you feel on your feet? How does your breathing? How's your range of motion? How's your head feel? And they may say, I feel lighter, or I don't feel that tension anymore. Patient today said, I feel like I can hold my head. It feels like it wants to sit on top of my shoulders instead of being forward now. That's super cool. Another patient, he was neurological, and then we had him spin just slowly like this, and he had his eyes closed. He had to determine which way he was spinning, and he was not so good. And then we did an adjustment very specific to certain parts of his brain, had him do it again, and then he was super good at it. So that was a therapeutic trial showing that what we did affected the nervous system right away. So I was like, okay, that's the side of the brain we need to activate more than the others. And so I told Anna, that's where we're going to do the therapeutic laser, as well as lights. He has these eye lights he wears. I'm going to stimulate that part of the brain, and I'm going to do adjustments that activate that as well. So that's one example. Functional lab testing for deficiencies, leaky gut syndrome, toxicity, and more. So we went over some of those labs. And then for an offer that we give for this seminar, so for over the next week through September 4th, our usual cost for this, for the basic evaluation, which I just went over, we do more complex ones for neurodevelopmental or dementia. But for the basic ones, $275, which is pretty good for all that. X-rays will be extra, but the seminar price will do $105. So if you guys know somebody, it's like, this would be really good for them. Or if somebody's listening online and you get this before September 4th, you can give us a call and schedule a time. You don't have to get in before the 4th, just need to call us and schedule. And for those of you who are already patients, we'll give you actually half off of that. So if there's somebody that you want to get in, then you can get them in for even less than that. We'll do half of that for you who are already patients and are at the workshop. Lab testing is not included in that. All right, one more story, because I love stories. And this is Jacob. This is actually not Jacob, but the story is about Jacob. So recalling that time, the child was almost 2 years old. My son's first seizure took place May 12th, 2023. I'll never forget. One of the scariest moments in my life. But I also remember being bombarded and conflicted with doctors explaining and making us believe medicating our son was the only path. They made us feel as if we were awful parents if we were to reject this option. And I remember her saying, it's like, and this is in California, it's like, CPS, doctors didn't say this, but the implication was there. It's like CPS may come visit you if you don't take this medication to give your child. And you're like, man, yeah, could they say this is child abuse? It's like, yeah, they could probably make that case and they could take the kid away. It's like, this is, you want to do the right thing for your kid. It's like, I care for my kid. I don't need you to be scaring me that you know better than I know. So yeah, it was tough You can imagine. So Dr. Hobbs' treatment program and education and understanding about our bodies has helped my son more than I can ever be thankful for. Of course, there are always adaptations to be made as our son grows, but understanding the balance of health and the way our bodies work has given us courage to move forward and confidence we're doing the right thing for our son. Okay, so that's all kind of mental. It's like, yeah, but did we see some changes? That's what they want to know, right? After starting the program with Dr. Hobbs in 2024, so now he's 3 years old by the time they get to us, we've seen major improvements in Jacob's behavior, his sleep patterns, and his routine right away. Since then, I've joined groups where I was able to hear other stories of parents in similar situations, see that we're not alone. Dr. Hobbs has shown us that we can still have a healthy, less stressful, and enjoyable life with our children and heal in a less medicated way. Jacob has now gone years without seizures and without medication. So can you imagine, if you know anybody who takes anti-seizure medication, it kind of makes them like a zombie, right? Can you imagine starting that at this age? I mean, and it's tough though. It's like you also don't want your child to be having seizures because that can cause some permanent damage. It's like it really is you're torn. We've had a few kids with seizures, and and they've all gotten better. So it's super cool. Okay, this is our last slide. So the opportunity we talked about. So we make times available for people who are listening in the workshop or listen within the next 7 days. That we'll get you in faster than usual because sometimes we're booked out quite a ways. So we set aside times for you, and then we'll do the neurological and spinal exams. How much? Just to find out if we can help you. That's really the beginning. It's this discovery exam. Can we help you? I don't know. So this exam will help us know. And so I mentioned the cost before. So we have some spots available. What's the frequency of treatment? So often we'll see people a couple times a week at first, and then we decrease frequency. We'll do the lab test as soon as we can, get those results back in. It takes a couple weeks for those. We'll start implementing the results on those. Insurance, we accept insurance. We're not contracted with anybody except for VA and Medicare. Medicare doesn't pay for a lot of this. They pay for the chiropractic adjustment, so that's good. But we will. We can print out a receipt, and then for people who aren't contracted, then they can send that super bill, that's what it's called, to their insurance, and they can be paid directly. All right, so I'm going to take a moment for any questions. Any questions we have online? Okay. Any questions you guys have? Did I answer everything you hope to be answered? And more with that fire hose of information? All right. So thanks for taking the time to show up here or show up online. That means that you take your health seriously. I take your health seriously. So it's really nice to work with people like you who are willing to put in a little extra time to learn and to apply things. So what now? So if you have somebody, you can let Anna know or Alondra know, and then they can get them scheduled. And also let her know if you want to receive that series of emails, and then we'll get those out to you starting very soon. It would be like 8 to 10 emails with some key slides and information to apply. All right.
Online, they can text us if they want.
Yeah, online you can call us or text us to the phone number either way, and then we'll get you that. There's no charge for that. Okay. That's it. I'll go and shut her down. Thanks. Oh, let's tell you this about this picture. Why the zebras? The zebra, pretend like this is just a baby zebra just born, and it's on the ground and just been born. And Mama Zebra says, "Hey, baby, you got to get up and you got to run." And the baby's like, "I've just been born." She's like, "Mama, I'm your mama. I know you've just been born, right? I get this." But we think about our medical system and how it's focused on disease and not on wellness. And these problems are developing. We've got problems beginning in childhood, and all the stresses, physical, chemical, mental stresses seem to be promoting illness and disease in our body. There's a lot of stuff coming for us. So that's what this picture relates to. So the mama says, the baby says, "Why do I have to get up? Why do I have to run?" It's like, "Baby, the lions are coming." So the lions are coming for us. And so now is the time to act, to make changes. Don't make this just information. Make this transformation in your lives. All right. Thank you.
I was going to ask you,
Yes.
If
Why does he